it gives me goosebumps when I see some of our paramedics perform on some of the most critical of patients and the job that they do. They really are special people.
Thank you. Rich has a question. I know he has to leave soon, so.
Okay.
Robbie, great presentation. There has to be a way that more of the public can see all that you've presented today to us. But I know you probably covered this and I missed it. But again, when a call comes in, are there dispatches then from the fire company and a paramedic?
Yes. So when the call comes in, they will immediately start asking questions. What is your chief complaint? As they are asking those questions, the call gets graded, if you will, in terms of what hierarchy or what priority it is. If it is an alpha level call, then you're just going to get an ambulance.
Okay.
You know, maybe you've sprained your ankle and you need to get it checked out. You're unable to get to a car. You're unable to get to a hospital. You need an ambulance. I've rolled my ankle. If it is a Bravo level, then that ambulance is going to come to you. If it's a Bravo level call, maybe it's a minor accident. That's one of the more common Bravo level calls. It's a fender bender, but the airbags went off and somebody wants to get checked out. You're just going to get an ambulance. When we get to a Charlie level call, you're going to get an ambulance and a paramedic unit. So they will go ahead and dispatch that. A Delta level call, again, ambulance and a paramedic unit. And then an Echo level call, you're going to get an ambulance, a paramedic unit, and they are going to call over the law enforcement channel and ask if there's any police officer in the area. If it's out on the beach, any lifeguards, they're going to make aware of it, because an Echo level call is considered an immediate life threat. So we want to get people there as absolutely fast as possible. So you may have Delaware State Police show up first. You may have municipal police show up. Generally speaking, if you're in a town, the municipal police are going to be there, pretty fast. They're able to provide life-saving care, whether that is chest compressions, clearing an airway on somebody that's choking, or get an AED on and potentially provide defibrillation.
Thank you.
Yes.
We have some questions coming through chat. Can you read the chat?
Might be able to. Give me just a second. Don't want to hit the leave. Participants.
It's very educational to me. I did not know the difference between ambulance and paramedic.
Yeah, and that is something that we discover quite frequently, that, and it's really nobody's fault. Maybe it's our fault because we haven't done such a great job of educating, but there's so many places in the country, and especially Maryland, where paramedics are on the fire trucks, paramedics are on the ambulances. That's, and that's just the system that people are accustomed to. And then when they come here, it's just a different system, and it's a different method of doing it. It works for us. We really look at the stance of, if somebody has a sprained ankle, if somebody just wants to get checked out and they're otherwise okay, let's hold those paramedics back for somebody, maybe the next call where somebody's having a heart attack or somebody's having a stroke. It really does work well for us in Sussex, especially given that our dispatchers always have the authority to increase the response. If that dispatcher's gut feeling is saying that something's going on here, they always have the authority to send the paramedics. And our EMTs, when they get on the scene, if they say, you know what, this is a lot more than just a sprained ankle, we need the paramedics, then we start that way. They just call for us and we start that way. So I have thanks for helping understand. I have questions about responding to possible strokes. Are you able to give medication, and are there instances that would prevent you from doing so? So strokes are always one of the interesting ones, and there's a lot of debate about whether we medicate in the pre-hospital world, and the answer is no. For us with a stroke, we try to maintain blood pressure in a range that ensures that we are perfusing the brain. And if there's an opportunity where we decide that, maybe the blood pressure is too high, we do carry medications that we're able to maybe bring that blood pressure under control. But the challenge is that we cannot be certain whether the stroke is as a result of a ruptured blood vessel or the stroke is a result of a clot. And if we were to give a medication to break up a clot, and it happened to be a stroke that was secondary to a bleed, that patient dies. And there's just no way around it. The patient dies. So when we do stroke, we will do a stroke alert. So we have within our protocol, we will assess the patient. One of the most important things that we can determine is what was the last known well time? When was the last time that person did not have stroke-like symptoms? And we share that with the hospital, because the quicker we can share that with the hospital allows them to start making their decisions. So one of the first things that we will do, and we do it all the time with BB, we do it all the time with our local hospital, is we take the patient straight to the CT scanner. We will bypass the emergency room. We will go straight to CAT scan, because the number one question we have to find out is there blood in the brain? If there's blood in the brain, then the hospital has to go through, a treatment branch that would cover that. If there's no blood in the brain, then you sort of take the stance that the stroke is secondary to a clot, and now they can go ahead and start making those treatment things. So for us in the pre-hospital world, it's really about assessment, sharing of information with the hospital, and controlling blood pressure as that's available. Did that answer that question?
Yes, thank you.
The next question is, how many paramedics are on duty at one time during season? And what's the average annual salary?
Yeah, so we are recruiting. So please, if you know anybody that has an interest in being a paramedic, maybe a high schooler or someone that's in college, our benefits are absolutely incredible. I mean, our pay is our pay is good. Our starting salary is just over $22 an hour. We give additional education incentive. If you come in with an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, you can get a bump in that. Or if you have experience as a paramedic, you can get a bump in that. Most of our first year paramedics make, about mid 50s a year. And if they love overtime, and, some of our paramedics do love overtime, they could be up into the low to mid 60s. When we talk about average, I would say a 10-year paramedic who is either a paramedic 2 or a paramedic 3 is probably in the 70 to 75 range. And with overtime could maybe make $80,000 a year. So, I think that is very respected. I think, it is a good salary. We can't live at the beach, on a paramedic salary, but certainly a couple miles inland, right? We're certainly not going to be in North Shores and Rehoboth, but we can, we can certainly have very comfortable living. And be part of our community. What was the second part of that question? I'm sorry. It was
about the salary.
Yeah, so the salary was in the ballpark of 50. Oh, how many on duty at any given time? It's interesting in the season. When we say season, we look at Memorial Day to Labor Day, and then the weekends in September and the weekends in May. We only add one extra paramedic. Our staffing really is based more on geography than it is based on call volume. It's something that, we recognize that we're still able to get to a lot of our calls in what we consider to be a reasonable time period. But in the summertime, we do add that one extra unit, and we've moved them down to the Route 54 corridor. We are in early talks, and certainly not for this budget year, but we are in early talks of when is the right time going to be to look at adding maybe a weekend power unit down in the Dewey or Rehoboth area. We may start to explore that. So, many years ago when we added our seasonal power unit, we started weekends only. We didn't cover Monday through Friday in June, July, and August. We just started weekends. And then as it got busier, we expanded to Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then we went ahead and made the leap to 7 days a week for those busy months. I would expect the same to happen with that Rehoboth power unit when the time is right, and whether that's FY23, but when the time is right, look at putting a power unit up maybe down in the Rehoboth or Dewey Beach area, single paramedic just for the weekends, and then as call volume increases, look at expanding that. But we have 20 paramedics on duty at any given time, and that includes our supervisors. And then at nighttime, we go down to 19. So, we really only lose that daytime Milton unit right now at night. Everybody else is on duty. What other questions were there? And for some reason, I lost my chat.
Keith, maybe you can ask first.
Yeah, my question has to do with the combination of the increasing population, the density of traffic, and the response time. I know you guys are adding and been growing and doing a great job. Do you see problems with the increase of residencies and buildings? So like on Route 24, for example, also down around 54, and obviously in the eastern part of the county. Has that slowed your response, your ability to respond to people? And is that an issue?
I mean, I think it would be unfair to say that we have not appreciated an increase in traffic. Certainly we see the increase in traffic. We've been able to move our medic units. So for example, down in the Southeast area, for many years, Medic 105 was on Route 17. And we rented a property from a family down there on Route 17, almost where South Coastal's emergency room is. And then, 4 or 5 years ago, we decided, hey, our call volume is really in the Millville, Ocean View, Bethany Beach area. The county owns property right there on Beaver Dam Road and Parker House Road. We need to relocate that medic unit so that we can be closer to where that call volume is, and that's worked out extremely well for us. And I think the same holds true with other areas. Right now we're renting a spot from the Cheer Center on Route 16, but we recognize that the future of Cave Neck Road, there's going to be more development there, and Lewis is going to get busier. So we're now looking at purchasing property and acquiring property, and we're looking at Cave Neck Road, and we would like to be on Cave Neck Road, somewhere in the area of a road that goes north and south that would allow us quicker access down to Route 9, still allow us access into Milton rather quickly. So we sort of look at that. We work with our mapping department to say, if we were to put the paramedic station here, what percentage of the calls in the last 5 years could we have gotten to in 2 minutes? What percentage of the calls in the last 5 years could we have gotten to in 4 minutes, 6 minutes, 8 minutes? And then what would happen if we moved the paramedic unit a half a mile down the road? Does that suddenly allow us to capture improved response times to a larger percentage of our call volume based historically on the last 5 years? So there's a lot of flexing that we do, and a lot of thought that goes into where is the best place for these future paramedic units. If we were static, if we weren't adding units, if we weren't looking at moving that, and we were, the same paramedic system that we were 10 years ago, we would be in trouble. Our response times would probably be 50% higher. And I'm just pulling that number, out of thin air, but our response times would be considerably higher than what we experience today. But it is that forward thinking. It is that relationship that we have with council that, they recognize Sussex County is growing. They recognize that our responses are going up. And they recognize that what goes with that is added public safety. And, the public safety that the county offers is paramedic service. So they're very open to us looking at where is the best place for the paramedic unit. When is the right time to expand coverage of that Medic 109 seasonal power unit? When is the right time to crack the door open on that second seasonal power unit? The one good thing about the paramedics is we jokingly say is the county doesn't really say no to us. If we recognize that there's a need, they're willing to let us try different pilot programs and to explore different opportunities to try and meet that need.
Thank you. Thank you for the great job.
Thank you.
We have a couple more questions. Do you have to find if there's a living proxy or if the person is under hospice care?
Yeah, so that's always one of the most challenging calls that we go on, in particular hospice patients, because, we have to go in and we have to find out, despite families, being on hospice and knowing that the end is near, when that time finally gets there, there's some very raw emotion that really comes out. And, so we really have to balance the wishes of the patient versus the wishes of the family that we're there with, and often, and we have to honor the patient's wishes. Now, living wills and such aren't applicable to pre-hospital. So for pre-hospital, we operate with a DMOST system, and that's a system that's across multiple states, but it is very specific on what the patient desires to have. Now, if we're presented with a living will, we will do a quick read over, and we immediately, we start to provide care, but we immediately reach out to our medical director, or the physicians that are in the emergency room, and give them a rundown. For example, hey, the spouse is here. The spouse says these are the patient's wishes. They have a living will. I'm looking at it. What do are you okay with us honoring the living will? Are you okay with us honoring what the spouse says the patient wants? So it takes a little bit more interaction with the hospital, with our doctors, when we're presented anything other than the DMOST form. Again, that form is signed by a primary care physician, it's signed by the patient, and it becomes a legal form that we're able to honor immediately on our arrival. With hospice, if we arrive on the scene of a hospice patient, we try to reach out to the hospice nurses if they're not already on scene, and work very closely with them. But we always try to do what's in the best interest of the patient and try to honor the patient's wishes. And there are times that what is very clearly the patient's wishes may not necessarily align with the surviving family member's wishes, and that puts our paramedics in a very tough spot.
The next question is, as the EMS is increasing capacity, are the independent fire companies also adding ambulances and EMTs?
They sure are. And, the one thing, either adding additional staff in the summertime, Rehoboth, Lewis, Millville, Bethany Beach, Roxanna, that eastern part of Sussex County, mid-Sussex there at Long Neck or Indian Mission Road, they all increase their staffing hours, as the summertime sort of comes in. Year round, the staffing they have today is a lot more than what they had 5 years ago and 10 years ago. So the fire service is really answering the call. The partnership between Rehoboth Fire and Lewis Fire and what they've done out there at Station 3 in Angola and Route 24 is just incredible. And I know that there's some conversations between those two departments on, is there a way to improve services, to that area? Can they do something with an ambulance crew there that would improve service? And I think that just speaks volumes to the fire service in general and their commitment to the community. At Frankfurt and Dagsboro, where I'm a volunteer at Frankfurt, for decades now, we have been on dual response with Dagsboro, where we recognize we don't really need a paid ambulance crew at both of those stations because of the close proximity in our call volume. So we alternate days, every other day, Frankfurt has the paid ambulance crew. And then when Frankfurt doesn't have it, Dagsboro has it. And what that does is, from a financial standpoint, instead of us both having to staff a crew, we're able to cover it with one crew and shared resources. And then if there happens to be a second emergency, we sort of go all hands on deck and try to answer that call. But all the fire companies have done a really good job, and certainly they're increasing staffing as we are because of that increased volume.
The next question is, if the call comes from a cell phone, how do you locate the person?
Yeah, great question. So cell phone will geo-verify the location. It will get you within so many feet, so that, if they're obviously in an ideal world, they're able to answer questions. They're able to tell people exactly where they are. But, if we have somebody who is from out of state, maybe a vacation, or who is staying at a rental property and something is happening, in the heat of the moment, they're probably not going to remember what the address of their rental property is. So, when they call 911, it will immediately start to ping on cell towers. And then based on triangulating those cell towers, they will be able to geo-verify and really get a very close within feet of where that 911 call is being made from.
Thank you. Val, why don't you ask your question? You can unmute yourself.
I have a question about the Cave Neck Road area. Hudson's seem to really support the community and Sussex County. Has anybody approached them to donate land in that area for a new station?
Yeah, so so once we identify the sweet spot, if you will, so the county administration, Todd Lawson is the county administrator, he really looks to us and says, I need you to identify the sweet spot and give me a circle. And then once we've identified the sweet spot and kind of that circle, he then goes to work. He then goes to work reaching out to landowners in that area. So, it's not really our role or my role as EMS director to go knock on property owner doors and sort of ask those types of questions. We allow, the county to really kind of take care of that. So we have done that up in Cave Neck Road. We don't want to move too far from Milton. We recognize that Milton is a growing area, and we want to remain in close proximity to Milton, but yet we want to be on Cave Neck Road in an area that allows us to go north and south. So if you were to say, I'll tell you where our sweet spot was between city limits of Milton and Sweetbriar Road, where they're getting ready to redo that intersection. That puts us a mile and a half. So anywhere in that area that he can find, a property owner that is willing to have a conversation, that's kind of where we would want to be. And I know that he's already reached out to a number of property owners and has had some really good conversation.
Oh, good.
Thank
Good to
you.
know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? I think some of the people had to drop off, but I think if there's no more question, we really appreciate your educating us, and I have a feeling that I still don't quite understand what goes with the EMT, and I think we may have some more questions in the future. If you
Absolutely.
would be willing to come and ask, answer more of our questions, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that once we get back into meeting in person, maybe we can have an ambulance that show up, a paramedic unit show up, and we can actually spend some time looking at the ambulance, looking at the paramedic unit, seeing the different gear, and then kind of talk about how we really partner together to make those calls happen. Certainly we're able to come out and do some hands-only CPR training. If you have any large community events that are going on that you're aware of, we would love to be a part of it. Once we're back into that type of world, hopefully not too much longer. But we would love to be a part of coming out and doing some on-site education at community events. We went from doing almost 300 of those a year pre-COVID to last year only doing about 15. So it really, our public outreach really took a hit with COVID.
Oh, I have one more question. That is, I see most of the, I guess it's called ambulances. They are now suburban. That was not the case before.
Yeah, so we used to be in what they would call the ice cream trucks. We used to have these squad body, maybe dog catcher or ice cream trucks. People would call them different things. And the challenge that we had was they had a lot of space. And when we first started our paramedic service, 20 years ago, most of the volunteer fire companies were run with volunteers. They didn't have career staff. So we would find ourselves as a paramedic, we would be on the scene first. for many, many minutes waiting for the volunteers to, come from home, get to the firehouse, get the ambulance out, and then get out to us. So we had to carry a lot of equipment. We had to carry backboards. We had to carry scoop stretchers. We had to carry all kinds of splints because we would be on the scene for 5 or 10 minutes before the ambulance crew would. Today, because of the way the system is designed and all of the fire companies having career staff and people in the station, it's really weird. 40% of the time we're on the scene first. 40% of the time the ambulance crew is on the scene first, and the remaining 20% we're on the scene together within the same minute. So we don't need to carry as much equipment anymore. So that really helps us from a financial standpoint. Those squad bodies, those ice cream trucks, they were running about $140,000 a year. The last time we bought one was about 6 years ago, and they were about $140,000. And we were able to get just about 2 Suburbans for the price of one of those squad body trucks. So there was, we get people in, and those squad body trucks, we would find a lot of dents on the bumpers. They were a much larger vehicle. They had a lot of blind spots, regardless of how we set the mirrors. There were just a lot of blind spots, and we would find the most obscure tree in somebody's driveway, and we would bump it. Knock on wood, we don't seem to see that at all, or as much with Suburbans. So we don't need as much equipment. The cost was certainly a driving factor too, for one, and the ease of maneuvering really played the role in our transition to Suburbans.
Okay, thank